Whoa, it's been a long time, guys. What's going on, everybody? Mark, SolarGames. Today, we're going to talk about some pretty major changes, right, that were just announced this morning about getting rid of draft and set boosters altogether. So, yes, there will be no more draft boosters, no more set boosters going forward, starting with Murder at Karlov Manor, which is the set that's going to be releasing in February 2024. What's going to be replacing that is a booster type called play boosters. Effectively, just think it's like draft boosters combined with set boosters all together into one product. They will be coming in boxes of 36, so it's draftable. However, so like a draft booster, it's going to have enough cards to draft. I think it's like 14 plus a token card. But unlike a draft booster, or unlike what we're familiar with draft boosters in the past for standard sets, is that there's going to be way more cards. What there's talking about now is like there's going to be booster fun included. So you're going to get your 4 art cards. You're going to get a foil for every pack, which further depreciates the value of foils in Magic. But I guess it doesn't really matter anymore because nobody really cares about foils anymore anyways. But the foil in every pack does also skew the rarity of a pack, because essentially a play booster, unlike a draft booster, can have anywhere between 1 to, like, I think they're talking about 4 different rares, right? And then plus 1 more for list slot. So essentially you can actually get like 5 rares per booster pack, which is pretty high variance. Now, of course, rare, mythic rare doesn't really matter too much because all this stuff is kind of like part of the design, meaning just because I name a card a rare or mythic rare or uncommon common doesn't necessarily mean that they're of that rarity. Normally when Magic the Gathering designs booster boxes, especially for drafting, they don't want to put too many rares in there because the whole idea is that you want to have the game mostly be focused around commons and uncommons, mostly commons, some uncommons, and then rares can kind of like skew and give you a little variance between each draft or sealed event. But in essence, it doesn't really change things much between games and whatever, right? That's the original design. Now, of course, a lot of players like opening packs. They don't really want to open draft boosters, so draft booster isn't really selling too well. Most of the sales are going to set boosters, but the set boosters themselves can't be drafted. They're too focused on one color or one theme, so they're not really useful for people who want to open packs, get really spicy cards, but at the same time not have to suffer through essentially basically something that's not playable, right? So I've actually, with my friends, tried to play sealed with set boosters, and it does feel really tough because there's a lot of swings, right? Because somebody could open a lot of really good cards, and then if you don't open the similar amount of good cards, then it could be a pretty big difference feeling-wise. So that's kind of like one of my concerns, right? Now, before I get to like all the other pieces of the concerns, what this doesn't change, by the way, is that it sounds like there's still going to be jumpstart boosters. Maybe those are kind of silently going away. And then, of course, the collector's boosters are not going away. So explicitly, there will still be collector's boosters. And I think what this is going to do is that there's going to be more exclusivity and differentiation between the collector's booster and what's in the play boosters. So the idea will be like if you're just here to play Magic, play limited, play sealed, play drafting, whatever, you're going to buy a play booster. If you're in general wanting to open packs, you want to open packs for, I don't know, cards, whatever, you're going to buy a play booster. If you want to open for lots of spicy stuff, the really exclusive things, different artwork, different showcase this, whatever, that's where you might then put yourself towards the collector's booster as an option. Now, if you're a super new player, you may also just buy the Jumpstart, shuffle it and play, whatever. Even though I've told you many times, do not buy the Jumpstarts for each set. Those are not worth your money. There's explicit Jumpstart products that are much better, or honestly, just open booster packs. At this point, you can probably open enough booster packs, shuffle up and play, and it'll feel probably okay in general anyway. So learn how to play sealed, learn how to play limited. Much better way to spend your money than buying a Jumpstart booster pack. Anyways, sidebar done. So what are the stated reasons by a wizard, WOTC, Mark Rosewater, about why they're doing this, right? So on the surface, official from WOTC is reduce complexity. So they want to reduce the number of SKUs that LGSs and stores and Amazon, wherever they're dumping their product now, has to deal with respect to selling. As you know, they've made plenty of mistakes because they don't know differences between this booster pack or that booster box or whatever. So they want to make it simple for the people who are selling Magic to know, okay, there's just a booster box. Just like every other game, most other games, I don't actually think there's any other game that sells multiple boxes. Like Yu-Gi-Oh has one specific set of like booster boxes. Pokemon does the same thing, right? If you look at other games across the board, they're all doing the same thing. Magic is the one that's like trying all this like fancy stuff with, too many different types of product. And I've told you in the past, like, I think it's getting a little ridiculous, too complicated, and absolutely they're seeing the same problems too. Number two, reduce confusion for the players, right? So they don't want to. Some players, I guess, complained that when they get their prize packs, for example, if they play sealed but they get a set booster, they're like, what do I do with this? Or if they get a draft booster, they're like, it's kind of like confusing because it's not what they were expecting, or it's less cards or less good cards than if they got a set booster. So they rather prefer a set booster over a draft booster for prizing, but they're drafting with draft boosters. I think this point is pretty weak. I don't actually know a lot of players that are complaining about this. Most players kind of see a draft booster or set booster pack or whatever as basically just kind of throwaway. Like, yeah, it's cool. I might open something cool, but like it's not really a big deal, right? See, most other games, the prize support is supplied separately. Like there's an actual like promo pack or there's like prize packs and whatever. These are separate for prize support only type of things that stores don't have to spend money to buy. See, the thing about Wizard of the Coast and Magic is most of the time, it's not always, but most of the time, some stores, they have to supply their own prizing, right? The prizing either comes out of the booster box itself. So that's why, you have 36, even though drafting takes, I think, 24? So 8 players for draft is 24 packs. There's 36 packs in the booster box because the 12 packs extra is used for prizing. Now, if you're a store, you open a draft booster box, Wizard of the Coast is not going to give you 12 extra packs to do prizing with, right? So you open the whole box, you then do the prizing based with the extra cards. And this is why usually when you play at a store, it's more expensive and totally makes sense. I mean, other than facility, all the others like their staff and hiring, electricity, all that stuff, they also have to make sure you pay for the whole booster box because otherwise they can't make money, right? So they're selling the whole booster box to you guys, but you're kind of supporting and prizing for each other, okay? So people understand how that piece works. Okay, so basically the whole like players getting what they don't really understand what they're buying. I can kind of see that a little bit with if you bought a set booster thinking you can draft with it, you can't, or if you bought a draft booster, you feel bad about like not opening the best cards because you realize you should have opened a set booster. I can see that, okay? So there is a little bit of sense in that. I think it's a very weak point though. Okay, so moving forward, what should you expect? Well, first of all, drafting will definitely be higher power level, and because there's going to be more rares involved. Now, again, Wizard of the Coast can design the game where rares essentially become more like uncommons, and then uncommons and commons are a little bit more blurred, where maybe it's just like 2 tiers of common. So like, I don't know, back in the old school days, we used to have like common 1, common 2s. Basically, the idea is like, because the way the sheet printing were done, some commons were, for example, printed on the uncommon sheet. So they were showing up less than other commons, right? That kind of stuff. There's a possibility that Wizard of the Coast kind of redesigns the whole draft experience where rares become more like uncommons, treated in a way that like they expect players to see them more. And so you may see a power up in the sense that you're going to have more rares in each, like sealed environment, but you're going to see a power down in the sense that each rare will be less powerful than before because again, they're expected to be used in draft as well as in constructed in whatever other format, commander, etc. You'll probably also see more mythic rares, which also leads to potentially Wizard of the Coast introducing a 5th rarity, right? So we haven't had a new rarity since Alara, so like whenever that Alara block was. So essentially now, I guess we can have potentially a 5th rarity, right? Above mythic rare. Something, because again, we're introducing a lot more rare cards. There's no reason to not have like a card that level where it's really rare, and the whole idea is like you're not really going to see it in drafting, and it's really meant for constructed. Obviously, you can open more packs to get that card, etc. So there is also that potential. That is just my speculation, though. That is not what they announced officially. Okay. The other thing to expect is drafting will definitely cost more. No matter how we want to talk about this, this is just a fact, right? Like, look, a set booster already currently today costs more than a draft booster. It's usually, I think, about market value wise, it's about $10 to $20 more. So if you buy a draft booster for, say, I think market now is like 110-ish at release, a set booster is going to cost you anywhere between 120 to 130 usually, right? That's the general pricing. Again, every LGS, every store, every Amazon dump will be different. So your mile may vary, obviously, plus tax and whatever else you have to pay for that, okay? So given those kind of pricing, I suspect play boosters are going to be around like 150 retail. This is with tax, everything included. And the reason I say 150 is because it's a set booster essentially, but it has more cards than a set booster, and it has more packs per booster box, right? So 6 more packs. So for those that don't open a lot of set boosters, a set booster actually has 30 packs. It doesn't have 36 like a draft booster. So because of this play booster having to be basically a draft booster, those booster boxes are going to be 36, cards. So that is going to shift exactly how that's going to work, right? So the way that this is going to look in the future is that likely those play boosters are going to be around 150-ish for a standard set, which makes me a little bit concerned because that's also going to mean that a Modern Horizon set, like those higher power level modern print to modern sets, but again, like not quite the limited print run like a master set, are going to be what, 250, 300-ish now? And if you look at master sets, does that push master sets to about $550, $600 per booster box? Could be, right? So this is part of the Wizard like price increase, because again, to them, effectively, like on the back end, this is really just a lot less. Honestly, it's probably simplifies their stuff. It doesn't cost them more to print these than if they were printing 2 products. In fact, they probably actually save money by combining the 2 products into one. The other thing to consider too is because of the fact that the play boosters will also have the list cards, which is essentially like all the booster fun stuff. They're not even from the set. They're going to be cards from outside the set, like think Time Spiral, extra bonus sheet type of thing, right? Except normally, because list was never part of the sealed or drafting experience, they weren't really considered. Now that they are part of that experience, they're being considered, which means that the original list being 300 cards is too high of a variance, so they're going to shuffle that down to about 50 cards per set. With the way that they said is like 10 special cards, 40 guest cards. Like, it sounds like what they're going to try to do is make the list cards for each set to be very focused with that set. So it's more like just an extra card that will work well with that set from previous Magic, right? Magic's previous pass. And it also sounds like they're going to have commons, more commons inside the list. So your list card may include a card that's like not as high rarity, which again doesn't really matter too much because like Rhystic Study, for example, it's a very expensive card. It's a common, so it's a prophecy common. So there's a lot of cards that's like a common that could still be, I guess, fairly like expensive. So not to worry too much about that kind of stuff for the reprint for the list cards. Okay, but do understand list is not going to be in every pack, so it's still going to be the same rates as set boosters. I think if they're going to follow the same rates, it's going to be about 7. I think it's 7 every 7 boosters or so. You're going to have 1 list card. Okay, and it does replace a common. So I don't know how that math works out for the actual booster box, right? Because normally the common is replaced by a foil. Now it's replaced by a list card instead. Okay, so now this is where like SolarGames gives you Mark from SolarGames gives you the real reason for why Wizard of the Coast is actually doing this. Well, obviously, number one, this is a price increase. This is the easiest way to increase price without actually like just increasing the price and not giving anything extra. So by confusing you first with all the product differences and then reducing that confusion. Remember, Wizard of the Coast created this problem. Why is set booster confusing for players or LGS? Well, because they introduced set boosters. Remember, a couple years ago, we didn't have set boosters. We didn't have collector's booster. We had one booster box for every set, and that's all they sold, and that's all we got. So if you want any of the cards, you buy that booster box, and you draft with it. You can open it for cards, whatever you want to do, right? Collectability, all that stuff. You want to get all the foils, you got to keep opening a lot of booster boxes to get all the foils. Now, of course, there's going to be, collector's booster, set booster, draft booster, jumpstart, all this other variants, theme boosters, whatever type of things. So, of course, they're crunching that down and saying, oh, we're going to have a play booster. We're solving this complexity problem for you, but who created this problem in the first place? You really got to understand that. Number two, think about the back end too, right? So, like, if you're running this business, the simpler you can make this process, the printing process on the back end, all that stuff, the better, right? So for them to print two different products, I mean, if you ever looked at, I wish I had, I don't have any set boosters with me. The actual booster box for set boosters is thinner than the draft boosters, right? And the original set boosters, if you ever remember them from Zendikar Rising, Strixhaven, Kaldheim, they look like modern, oh, you know what they look like? They look like Modern Horizons draft booster boxes with like a little, it's like taller, it's like a square-ish kind of box, or more like rectangle. I guess all booster boxes are rectangles, but like think more of a square rectangle. Like the side, the cross section is a square, but the whole thing is like a long square, right? That costs a lot of money. That's why they reduced it back down to basically looking like a draft booster box, so less protection, of course. But it's cost less and it's easier to ship, all that stuff. However, but even having two different boxes where you have to wrap differently, you have to have different printing process, you have to shift cards, how you, like, which hopper throws what cards into everything. Remember all the different, like, mistakes they've made with set boosters in the past? For example, March of the Machines, right? Or was it March of the Machine? March of the Machines, right? Where they had, like, the first print run of the set boosters in the bundles had, like, a list card every single pack, that kind of stuff. So these mistakes can happen too. So by simplifying all that process, less mistakes, less factory, less like printers that have to make different products, they just make one product. Same size, same box, same layout, right, for every single set. That's a lot better long-term for them money-wise because it's going to cost less. So even though they've increased the price on the front end, they actually probably reduced costs on the back end. And why does this really, really, really matter though? Because, look, Q3 earnings is coming. Look, a lot of times players don't think about this kind of stuff, but it's a business. Wizard of the Coast is a business. They report up to the bigger business called Hasbro, and Hasbro has to report Q3 earnings in, I think, was like 10 days or so. Yeah, 26th of October. Today's the 16th. And so that's going to be a pretty big report because right now, if you have seen Hasbro stock, it's not looking great right now. So they probably want to get all this numbers up front where they can say, we are making more money coming soon, and we're going to be reducing costs coming soon. So even though we're having a bad quarter now, this is what we're doing to adjust for that and make a change, right? And if you remember all the other quarterly reports I've done in the past on this channel, we've always talked about how Hasbro doesn't actually make money. The only piece that really makes money is Wizard of the Coast. So I mean, it's like all eyes are on Wizard, right? If they do well, then Hasbro stock has to go up. If they do poorly, honestly, I think Hasbro stock would just crash because everything else is losing money. This is the only thing that can help them, save them out of something, right? So I think that's the real reason. It's like, why announce it now? Why do? I mean, obviously, it's coming very soon, so they have to announce it eventually, and they can't do it like the month before or the week before. But at the same time, they're probably doing it now because they're trying to get ahead of that quarterly earnings report. And this is the best way to do it. And if you look at the pricing, we're going to go from $110 for draft boosters, which, by the way, for those that forgot, we used to pay like $90, $95, $80. Remember when $80 draft boosters was a thing? Now we're going to be paying about $150. That's double the price. And we did that in 4 years, right? I know there's inflation out there. I know your carrots don't cost the same anymore. Cucumbers are way too expensive, that kind of stuff, right? But I don't remember it doubling prices at the supermarket. Now, I know there's a little bit of an increase, 20%, 30%. I don't remember it being double prices. And we're talking when we talk like food items, we're talking like from $10 to $12, or from $1 to like from 80 cents to $1, right? This is kind of increase that we're talking about here. But for draft boosters, we've doubled, and the increase is from $80, $90 to like $150. And sure, maybe on the back end, Wizard of the Coast is paying more for paper, for printing, all that stuff, for man hours and human time. But at the same time, I mean, it's not much more paper. And on the front end, the players can say things like, "Hey, Mark, but we're getting more mythic rares, we're getting more rares." But remember, who decided the rarities? Wizard of the Coast did, right? So they're just printing money. So they can say, "Oh, we're printing more $100 bills in your booster boxes," which means we should charge you more. But you're printing those $100 bills. They don't exist before. So, exactly what's happening here. All of this is just so that Wizard of the Coast can make more money, ask you for more money, and then you have to pay it. Which makes, honestly, like, I think, before the drafters, people who didn't really want to, they weren't really there for collecting all the cards, whatever, they could just buy draft booster boxes. But now they're kind of forced to buy set booster boxes even to draft, right? Or your pre-release kits are going to be filled with, play boosters instead of draft boosters. So, obviously, if you are going to buy set boosters anyways, this never hurt you anyways. This is probably a buff for you, like everything's better. But for those people who kind of felt like Magic was already kind of expensive, Magic has just gotten more expensive again. And given this trajectory, given the direction that the company's taking it, I don't think they're going to stop or slow this down. They're going to probably push even higher. That's kind of just where we are now. So anyways, that's going to do it for me for today. Mark from SolarGames. I'll see you next time. Stay classy.